Hi, it's Mick here from Infinity Innovations, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the 9.4 lithium battery. When adding these to an existing bank of batteries that's already on site, we're going to go through the do's and don'ts to make your installation that much smoother. So the first thing to take into consideration when adding new batteries to an existing bank of batteries is that any new battery out of the box has to become the master battery. So that does mean you will have to move batteries down to make room for these to be the master. What determines it being a master? Well, that's a comms cable coming down from the inverter to the first battery in the bank. So that's the first thing that you're going to have to do before you can go any further in the installation. So before we can do any commissioning, before we can hang the batteries on the wall, before we can add any wires, the first thing we're going to have to do is readdress the old batteries that were on site. Because they're already preset to their existing position in the bank of batteries, we now need to reset the address, so when we turn these back on, they'll readdress in accordance to the position they are in the bank. So let's turn these batteries around, let's quickly go through that procedure and show you how to short a battery out to readdress it. Right, so let's show you how to short these batteries out and to readdress them. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is remove the battery from the wall. We then want you to turn the battery off via the breaker that's on the side, and then also turn it off via the power button. So this battery has to be completely turned off, no cables from battery to battery, no comms cables from battery to battery, it just needs to be just like this in the video. Then what we want you to do is to take your small comms cable from battery to battery and put that into the inverter input of the battery, and then put it into the comms input from battery to battery. Leave that cable there for 15 seconds, and what that's going to do, it's going to create a short and it's going to readdress the battery so it can then start its process within the bank of batteries again. So to check that the short has worked and it's readdressed itself, just turn the battery on freestanding with no power cables or comms cables in. Have a look at the screen, and what we're looking for is the run state here in the bottom corner to say 0-1. If you have a 0-1, well done, you have now re-shorted that battery, readdressed it, and now it's now ready to add back into the bank of batteries. Right, okay, so we've now put our master battery in place. We've brought the power cables down from the inverter, and we've brought down the comms cable to the inverter. This battery is off at all times through putting these cables in. We're then going to go to our second battery, or our first subordinate in the pack. It doesn't matter if you've got one or you've got another 7 batteries added onto here. All those other batteries are all turned off as well. And the first thing we're going to do before we turn anything on is put these power cables on now from the master battery to the slave battery. What we're not going to do is put the comms cable in. We're going to leave that. So now that we've done that in sequence with all the batteries, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the master battery on. So we would flick the breaker on first, then the power button. We're going to wait 10 seconds or more, and then what we're going to do is introduce the comms cable from the master battery to the first subordinate battery. Remember, this battery is switched off. Now what we do is we go through that same procedure, battery breaker on, battery button turned on. Wait 10 seconds or more, then add the comms cable from this battery to the next battery, and you follow that procedure all the way through until you get to the last battery in the batch. So as you can see, we've now turned the batteries on in the sequence that I've just told you, and as you can see, the master battery is now run state 0-1, and if we look at this battery here, it's now run state 2. So that means that they have addressed correctly in the right order. Right, so now you've done that process, you've got everything addressed correctly up to how many batteries you have in the bank. You now need to turn all the batteries off, remembering which order they are in, and now hang the batteries on the wall or against the wall if they're using the feet. Do the same procedure. Put the power cables in, keep the comms cables out, do the turn on procedure. So that's breaker, button first, wait 10 seconds, then add the comms cable to the next battery, do the turn on procedure again then. The reason we kind of tell you to do this off the wall is because if there was any issues for any reason, you're now having to pick that battery up, take it back off the wall and start again, look at see what the problem is. By doing this, we're saving you a lot of lumping around, a lot of annoyance. Just get them set up like this on the floor, then add them back to the wall or pin them back to the wall. Make sure you do that turn on procedure. It is critical that you do that. If you don't, you're only going to mess up the addressing and you have to start again. There is one thing though we do need to make sure that you do when you are adding the comms cable in from controller to the battery, to the master battery, make sure you do put it into the inverter port, which is the bottom comms port of the battery. If you put that into any other port, you are going to mess the addressing up of that particular battery and you'll have to do the readdressing, shorting out procedure again.